Kappa League TV.
Power to the people! Power to who? To the people! Power to who? To the people! It's not power to the lawyers, it's not power to the police, it's not power to the justice system, it's power to the who? To the people!
Mawuli Mel Davis is an African-centered civil rights attorney, human rights organizer, philanthropist, and author. For over 30 years he's been involved in organizing in the movement for Black liberation. He played a key role in the removal of the Confederate monument in Decatur. Attorney Davis has been intentional about developing youth empowerment programs as a co-founder of Let Us Make Man, the Black Man Lab, and Beacon Hill Black Alliance for Human Rights. As an attorney, he has represented activists in the Black Lives Matter movement and Stop Cop City campaign. He has been named a super lawyer for 9 consecutive years, received the highest award from Georgia State College of Law, and named among Atlanta's 500 most powerful leaders by Atlanta Magazine. He teaches race, law, and politics classes in the Dr. Mac H. Jones Political Science Department at Clark Atlanta University. Mawuli is the founding partner and senior trial partner for Davis Bozeman Johnson Law, one of Georgia's largest Black-owned and operated plaintiff civil law firms. Attorney Davis is the author of We Need You, Encouraging My Son's Generation for Black Liberation, and was named a Black Futurist by Essence magazine. He holds a Bachelor of Science from the United States Naval Academy, a master's degree in public administration from Bowie State University, a Juris Doctor degree from Georgia State University College of Law, and he was awarded a Doctor of Humane Letters by the Interdenominational Theological Center. Attorney Davis is a life member of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity, and married to his childhood sweetheart, activist educator and City of Decatur School Board member, Dr. Jana Johnson Davis. Their sons, Kobe and Carrie, are both graduates of Howard University.
I want to thank Brother Davis for joining us.
Greetings to everyone, and looking forward to this conversation on this important, not historical topic, but current topic, because this fight is ongoing.
So let's go ahead and get into it because we got a lot of ground to cover. So the first thing I want to share is a clip from the movie Selma.
Troopers, advance!
70 million people are watching this.
The first 10 or 20 Negroes were swept to the ground, screaming, arms and legs flying, packs and bags went skittering across the grassy divider. Those still on their feet retreated. A cheer went up from the white spectators lining the south side of the highway.
So that was March 7, 1965 in Selma, Alabama, where 600 protesters protesting peacefully were attacked. But prior to that, we'll go back a little bit.
You can't keep anyone in the United States from voting without hurting the rights of all other citizens. Democracy's built on this. This is why every man has the right to vote, regardless. Is what I'm saying true? Yeah. Is it what you think and what you believe? Yeah. Move back. If we're wrong, why don't you arrest us? We're willing to be beaten for democracy. You beat people bloody in order that they will not have the privilege to vote.
Reverend C.T. Vivian went to vote, got assaulted. This was about a month prior to Bloody Sunday. Brother Davis knows Reverend C.T. Vivian, so I want to give him a chance to just give us a little bit of preamble of, what he was doing and what led to the strife in Alabama that ultimately led to Bloody Sunday.
So Reverend Dr. C.T. Vivian was an incredible organizer, what I would describe as a long distance runner for justice. We were fortunate to have him as a mentor Many of us who started Let Us Make Man, an organization that we developed over 19 years ago to really focus on ensuring and developing a gathering to reclaim Black manhood. And Reverend Vivian was our very first keynote speaker. Our highest award in our organization is named after him, and he just was an inspiration. Was an inspiration. The courage that he showed on that day in 1965 was again, it really crystallized for many the viciousness of white supremacy and racism in the South and what it looked like in terms of Jim Crow segregation. And in many ways, Selma was very much a city that was almost a concentration camp in ways for Black people and not allowing Blacks the right to vote, preventing Blacks any level of freedom of movement. And the sheriff who struck him, Jim Clark, when you see that bloody nose, and his face was bloody by this sheriff, Jim Clark, who was notoriously vicious and was a part of the troopers on Bloody Sunday, that led to the violence against the likes of John Lewis, the great former congressman of Georgia, as well as Hosea Williams and many others. So it's really important to understand the courage that it took. I also want to lift up for our young brothers and sisters the Jimmy Lee Jackson, to put this into some historical context. What we have to understand that is at this time in 1965, in February of 1965, Jimmy Lee Jackson was also a part of the movement, the push for voting rights. And he was ultimately shot by a state trooper. He was trying to protect his mother and grandmother when he was shot by a state trooper, Alabama state trooper, and he later died as a result of his gunshot wound. And so as the folks gathered for Bloody Sunday, at the time it was, to start this march from Selma to Montgomery, about 54-mile march, to start this march to symbolize the importance of the right to vote. And as they were preparing at Brown Chapel, they lifted up the name of Jimmy Lee Jackson and reminded one another of the sacrifice that Jimmy Lee Jackson gave as it relates to his very life for this important, critical fight for justice.
I want to follow that up. There was a woman in Selma who was already organizing by the name of Amelia Boynton Robinson. She was the person who solicited Dr. King and the civil rights leaders to come and do the march. What did they expect when they came to this march? Because this wasn't something that we couldn't see. It wasn't something that was organic, where the sheriff just happened to be on the other side with troops and tear gas and, all these things that traumatize these people. Was the expectation that was going to happen? And what was the result? Because television, as we saw in the clip in Selma, we had people watching all over, and that was basically what was the turning point that gave us the 1964 Civil Rights Act and the 1965 Voting Rights Act. Or maybe I have it backwards. No, that's right.
Voting right.
So
yes.
I just want to say, based on how that turn of events went, was it expected that this level of violence was going to occur? And how did it turn out to work in the favor by exposing it to so many people?
Yeah, no, that's an important question and conversation. And I think, when you put into context the Jimmy Lee Jackson, and I think it's important for us to understand that movements and the way movements, social justice movements, there is a level of obviously planning, but there's also some things that happen organically. And so you have Ms. Boynton, who was organizing, and it's important for us to understand. Most people think that the civil rights movement popped up when Rosa Parks decided not to give up her seat on that bus. We've been organizing. We've been organizing over many generations, and I encourage all of our young people to look at the organizing efforts in your particular city, in your area. This has been an ongoing struggle, an ongoing fight for justice. And so while we mark the modern civil rights movement, beginning with the Montgomery bus boycott in 1955, keep in mind, this is some 10 years later. So you're talking about 1955, the Montgomery bus boycott in Alabama, and you have emerging, again, a unknown person by the name of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. from Morehouse College, from Atlanta, out of a big church, from a very middle class background. He emerges. He is selected essentially because he didn't really have any allegiances in Montgomery, and so they thought that he would be a good neutral person. That happens. As that emerges, we go from the 1955, and then you think about 57, you have Arkansas, Little Rock, Arkansas attempts to desegregate school system. Then in 1960, you have the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee that emerges on February 1st, 1960 out of North Carolina AT&T. And so by 1965, we're full steam ahead with a student level of engagement across all the HBCUs in the South. So be very clear, the HBCUs in the South, from Florida A&M, North Carolina A&T, the entire Atlanta University Synod, Tuskegee, you name it, are engaged in this movement. And at the same time, you have these seasoned civil rights organizers that have been trying to get people to vote, trying to get people registered, and now this kind of comes into this culmination. So when Sister Boynton makes the call, there are already people that are on the ground organizing. So John Lewis was a Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee representative. He represented SNCC. You had C.T. Vivian, who was a part of SCLC. And so these are all of the different energies and organizations that come together in this moment that leads to what ultimately becomes Bloody Sunday. And yeah, I really appreciate the question also that Malcolm X had come to Selma as well. So Selma, he had come to Selma and spoken in Selma. So Selma was a hotbed. It was seen as a place where organizing was happening. It was necessary. And while it could not be predicted, the level of violence that these marchers would receive from these state troopers, I think they were clear what they were doing was heroic. What they were doing was risky. What they were doing could lead to them being killed or seriously injured, because death in the movement at that time, particularly in Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, Deep South, was commonplace, unfortunately.
I want to play a clip of, we mentioned Ms. Robinson, of why she was actually beaten on that bridge. That the picture you saw of the lady that was falling down, that was her. So I want to play a little bit of sound from her perspective of what happened that day.
We were going to march from Selma, Alabama, which is on the river bridge, to Montgomery. I was near the front at the beginning. They came with horses. They came with nightsticks. And I was standing and people were running because they were beating them. And then he hit me on my shoulder. I did not run, so he hit me at the base of my neck. And I became unconscious. They drug me off of the highway And there I lay, I don't know how long, but somebody said to one of the state troopers, "She's dead."
Clearly, she didn't die.
No, she didn't.
Didn't die.
Lived, lived
But
to the ripe old age of 110. She was born in 1911. What a great year.
great year.
She was born in
So,
August
so I
1911.
want to follow up because the fact that this was televised and everybody was watching it, it was the turning point. So
Mhm.
fast forward to today, where we have social media, we have had televised marches. Does it have the same effect, the fact that we have so much media and so much availability to see these things in real time, that they don't have the same effect that they had back then to organize and change people's minds of what's going on with regards to civil rights? Is that something that we need to be concerned about, that it's too much, it's oversaturation, that there's no shock value anymore?
I think there is a level of people being desensitized by we have seen the violence perpetrated against unarmed black men and children and women. And obviously those still result in, and they have resulted in movement, in action. I think we would be remiss if we didn't lift up the name of George Floyd.
No peace! No peace!
In 2020, and the showing of his horrific murder that lasted over 9 minutes galvanized an entire country. In fact, it led to people taking to the streets in ways that we had not seen since the civil rights movement. The issue for us, and I think for the young people to hear, is that we have to understand the work of sustaining the movement, right? It's not enough to march. We need to march when necessary. It's not enough to just merely show that we will come out in force. But what are the public policy changes? What are the deep seated reasons that people continue to struggle around issues of racism? And the reality is is that this country has not fully addressed the harsh reality of racism, white supremacy, period. And and our work continues. Our work as organizers, our work as educators, our work in just with young people is to help clarify and crystallize for them that this struggle is ongoing, that this work must continue, and that it is an organized effort and a continuation of many years of struggle. And the last thing I'll say, before turning it back over, is that part of our challenge is to put this in the context of our overall movement as African people. And too often we start at our point of trauma, which is our enslavement, and we don't start at our point of civilization, which was when we created and built the greatest civilizations on the planet. And so we have to put ourselves in proper context so that we know that what we should be working towards is building self-governing, managing spaces, and not just thinking that the vote alone will ensure our ability to be safe and self-determining. And that's hard. And that's a tough reality, but we're seeing it now more than ever in light of the recent aggressions that we're experiencing on our rights, on what they call diversity, equity, and inclusion. It's a lot more than that, right? And this administration has shown its willingness to attack all things black, brown, poor, all peoples. And so this is a time that our young people have to be educated and ready to step forward and organize as they touch base on these college campuses as well.